Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and today I want to talk about stripping leaves off of your roses, whether you should do that, whether you shouldn't. And I have to admit right up front, you may have heard me become critical in the past when I visited a formal rose garden and found that they routinely strip all of the leaves, the lower leaves, off of their plants and leave this very Dr. Seuss-y, top-heavy, bare knees look to their formal rose gardens. Now, before I get too critical down that line, I want to actually talk about why they do it and why they're not altogether wrong. So let's have an open mind here and talk about why we strip the leaves from roses. Before I go any further, let's show you stripping leaves and what I mean by that. Stripping leaves is when you grab the stem like this, grab the leaf of the rose. This is one leaf, even though it has 5 leaflets on it, and you just pull downwards and strip that right off of the stem. I see some people try to tackle this by cutting at the base like that, but then you just leave this little stipule at the base there. And actually, it's easier and quicker once you get used to it. Just grab and pull those downwards. Here's Abraham Darby still putting up flower buds, I guess showing some bravado towards the end of the season. And just to give you a sense of the entire shrub, you can see that I have not been religious about stripping the leaves on this plant or even taking stems out of the center. It is a bit of an open shrub, but this is kind of the way I like it, with lots of foliage all over the shrub and maybe not so quite tightly tamed a form with all of the center stems taken out. However, and here's where I'm going to make a point for the opponents in this debate, is that if you get a close-up on some of those leaves, you're going to see black spot. And it does tend to be worse in the center and lower down on the stems of the rose. And this is the reason why leaf stripping is such a common practice, is that when it comes to foliar diseases like black spot, that if you strip off the lower and inner leaves, you can head off the disease quite a bit. I'm still going to come down on the side of defaulting to leaving more foliage on, and now I will show you why. Here I'm going to zoom in on this garden rose, Playboy, which also is doing a brave show at the end of the season. But what you will see is that the overall of this shrub is very bushy and has spotless leaves from head to toe. And it is generally a fairly trouble-free rose in my garden. And so this is why I don't like the idea of acting preemptively to strip the leaves off of everything, because every once in a while you will have a good rose, a disease-resistant rose. Hey, that's the goal here, is to have ones that hold on to their leaves, perform well, and look natural in the landscape. So that's going to be my standard position in the garden for all of my shrub roses, is that I'm going to default to leaving more foliage on. And even though I recognize the value of stripping leaves and pruning to open up for air circulation in the center of the roses, that I want to treat it as a case-by-case basis, allowing some of the roses, the healthier roses, to retain more of their foliage for a more natural look. However, I want to take you inside now and show you what I'm doing for plants that I'm overwintering in their pots, because yes, I strip leaves there. Well, here I am in my greenhouse, and you can see that the roses that I've started to work on now, I have been pruning to an open shape and removing leaves from the centers. And the main reason for that is to avoid rot. Inside of a greenhouse like this, and going into the winter months where light is quite scarce and dampness is the rule, you will end up with a lot of rot on some of those inner leaves. And so by removing the leaves at this point and bringing it down to a minimum, I reduce the amount of both foliar diseases, but also botrytis and winter-related rot that can settle in the centers of the plants. And so because I'll be keeping this as a cool, unheated greenhouse over the winter, I think it's the right time to take off those leaves. All right, I hope that answered some of your questions about how and when I strip leaves from roses. And if you have any questions about this or debate points of your own, please drop those into the comments of the video.